So this weekend we had a mixed bag of weather. It was okay on the Sunday morning, but then I was off out delivering flowers. I got back and it was okay for a little while, and then we had some thunderstorms. But luckily for me, I had an area which is indoors which needed a lot of work, and that was the polytunnel. So in this video we're going to go ahead and we're going to get the beds finished, and we're going to get it all planted up, get the irrigation in. We've got a tunnel. Oh, do you know what? I visited a local grower recently who has a huge tunnel. Mainly I visited her because I didn't have a tunnel and I do not have the quantity of flowers that I need to fulfill my orders. I have bits and pieces around, but just not the quantity. And anyway, she took me for a tour of her tunnel, and it was amazing to see just the length of the stems, how healthy the flowers were. And I'm so excited. I mean, I'm excited that I can plant this now, but I'm even more excited to be able to plant the tunnel in the autumn and have a better array of crops at this time of year next year. It's getting late on in the spring now. It's going to start heating up quite a lot. So the plan for the tunnel is going to be zinnias, those white dahlias that I'd like for that wedding at the end of September. And then I'm going to direct sow a few things for that wedding as well, but possibly not right away because I don't want them to, you know, grow on too quickly. So anyway, do you want to see what we've got to contend with? So you can see we've got nettles and plantain and an awful lot of grass. There are a few good things in here though. Got a verbena boreensis coming up there. Some calendulas. Look, and I haven't sown any calendulas, so we'll save those. And that looks like a salvia there. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go through with a tray and just rescue anything that looks like it might be worth rescuing, and then we'll get a weed bag and start weeding these beds out. I haven't got a great back at the moment, so I probably shouldn't be doing this, but you know what it's like. I just really want to get this planted now because we're heading way through May, and before we know it, it's going to be June. So anyway, less whinging, let's get on with it. Oh look, there's a forget-me-not there as well. Look how dry the soil goes when you haven't mulched it. Bearing in mind the cover has only been on this tunnel for a couple of days, so you know, I'm gonna really heavily mulch this and just get rid of some of this, and I'll pop that up like that. Feverfoo. Three in one. Calendula, a feverfoo, and a forget-me-not. I'm not going to transplant a lot of the poppies because honestly they just don't like being moved. Best tool in the world, hori knife. I've got two, well actually I've got three, but I don't know where one of them is. I've got another one the same as this, but I lost it ages ago. I thought it was in the compost heap. but when I spread the compost in the garden I didn't find it. You can see it's mainly creeping buttercups in here. And I'm doing this by hand because I just don't think my back is up to using a fork. So it's going to be a long process, but hopefully, because I'm kneeling down, my back will be okay. Got some little bulbs here, we'll save those. I think they are a very tiny allium I planted last year with tiny little white flowers. They obviously got missed when I dug them up. I think I've made the decision that I might just go along this side and take out the nettles, dandelions and buttercups, and then I might cardboard and mulch this side, because this side is a lot worse and the ground is quite dry and can just do with getting, you know, some water and some mulch on it. So this will be done as a no dig, and then this will be done as a dig. So that's the plan anyway. So, but I will just, yeah, that dock leaf at the end and a few of the nettles, I will take those out before I put the cardboard down. So you can see my Hori knife blade tells you that 6 inches is here. So it's really good for spacing. Lots of things need to be planted at 9 inches. But these things that I want to encourage to be tall, I want to plant closely together. In my eagerness to get the polytunnel planted out, I forgot I was supposed to lay my drip tape down before I planted. So I've planted this whole row and now I've got to try and lay drip tape on it without squishing my babies. How stupid. Oh, I was just so excited about getting plants in the ground. Never mind, I'm sure it's something I can do. started growing originally, I used all this drip irrigation, and that was when I was growing through plastic. But I've since, you know, a couple of years ago, I took it all up. But I'm going to reuse it in my polytunnel to save on watering. So I've just got these pins that I'm just pegging it in place, and I still need to put end stops on some of them where they're not on there anymore, and cut them to length. I'm just finding the drip emitters and just making sure each of the dahlias actually got one next to it. So I've put 3 lines on each side, but as I say, some of these, so this one's got an end cap on from when I originally used it, but these two both need end caps putting on, and then I need to cut at this end and join them all together with some pipe without the drip emitters on it. So that's my next job. If you're using drip lines or drip tape, you need a pressure regulator to make sure that you have the same amount of water coming out through each of the drip emitters. So this will be outside the polytunnel, and this connector will be where I'll attach my hose pipe. So we can see there is a split. I'm just testing the drip irrigation, and there's a split there, which is very annoying. So now I've got to fix that. Okay, so test 1 of the drip irrigation didn't go very well, but I've put a new piece in. I'm going to turn it on and we'll see what happens this time. Hopefully we'll just hear the trickle of water. I just realised this is a different tea, and again it's not the right size, so that's popped off. Right, well, third time lucky maybe. Let's try again. Okay, so what we're looking for is for all of the drip emitters to just be dripping. There shouldn't be any I'm a bit worried there's a drip back there on the main pipe, so that's not a good sign. Oh, I can see it's coming out from here, so I need to stop again and push that back on. Now, the realistic truth of growing cut flowers and selling bouquets, bunches, arrangements as a side hustle opposed to a full-time job is it means that I have to do a lot of my work really early in the morning and really late in the evening. So you join me now, and the sun, you can't, obviously I haven't got you facing the sun, but the sun hasn't even made it over the trees there yet. And we're bright and early before I've got to get ready for work. I've had my breakfast, brushed my teeth, so I do a few little jobs, one of which is to show you my Dahlia cuttings. Do you remember that I took? Because I want to get them into pots now, because most of them, I think all but one, have rooted, and in fact I think one perhaps we'll just let it get a few more roots before we pot it up, but we'll go and have a look at those now and get those potted on, and then do another few little jobs before I have to get myself off to work. Poor Dahlia tubers unplanted, but look, do you know, I'll just plant them in the ground. It'll be fine. They'll be a bit later, but it'll be fine. Right, okay, folks. Lid off. Got some goodies in here. I think even some of these, yeah, can you see teeny tiny roots on here? This is where I pinched out a Gadisha. And then I pinched out some phlox. Oh, he's not rooting yet. But this is what we've come here for, folks. These are the Dahlia cuttings we took. There we are, look at that. So that is ready to be potted on. So that's Caramel Antique. Whoa. I'll put you on it any minute before I go to work. And then Natalie G. There we are, little roots there. Who's this? Karma Serena. Oh, yeah, good girl. Now, this is the one that hasn't rooted yet. Oh, Hotelafib, it's not that one, that's Snowflake. Snowflake clearly is rooted. It's this one that hasn't rooted. So that's the only one that hasn't rooted of all these at the moment, my love. And I've actually recut the cutting because I just think it needed a fresh cut to see if it will take. Because, you know, all the others are taken, even though this one's only just taken, it has. So we'll leave the Cafe au Lait and the My Love another few days and pop them on later. But these ones, Natalie G, Caramel Antique, Snowflake and Karma Serena, they're all good to go. And the good news is, now I've freed up some space in the propagator to take some more cuttings. This is just the peat-free B&Q again, and gosh, it needs watering in a minute, but I'll water it in a minute. We'll just get them in first. Actually, do you know what I'm going to do? I really don't want to disturb the roots, so I'm going to take a lot of that compost out a minute, because then I can pop him in. He's got really good roots. I mean, I love my hydropropagator. Just look at those roots. And I can't remember how long ago I did that video, after I took these cuttings, was 2 weeks ago. Right, and then I'm going to put the compost around the roots, and then we're not disturbing them too much. I will go to work in a minute. I should really be wearing my gloves. I was at the dentist on Friday, and as you know, I don't carry a mobile phone, so and they don't put magazines in waiting rooms anymore because they just think everybody's got a mobile phone. So I ended up looking at my nails. Oh my goodness, I wish I hadn't. I was so embarrassed. Oh, my hands were so filthy. If you are someone who takes a lot of cuttings, then I would think about the hydroprophagater. However, if you're someone who just does a few a year, then it might not be worth it. I think because I've got my license now for selling plants, I thought it would be quite useful because there's no risk of me, if I do cuttings, there's no risk of me accidentally giving people bindweed or ground eld or anything like that. Doing cuttings into water is really healthy, and then I can just put them in some bought peat-free compost ready to sell on. But yeah, I mean these Dahlia cuttings, I've done obviously I've done cuttings many times without a hydropropagator, and it's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that method. But I mean, I didn't even cut this one down that much. Look at it. Absolutely fantastic. Really good for things like roses and chrysanthemums. So here we are. Here are our 4 cuttings. We need to get some labels, and then we'll take these over to the greenhouse. Some of the days obviously are coming on a lot better than others, but here they are. I always plant them out on May bank holiday, but I haven't started harding them off yet, so I don't know if that's going to happen. The only thing I've got left to do is Monday morning, so it's a work day, is I've left one little bit of bare soil because I've got some seeds here. And I've got one thing I said I was never going to grow again because it's a bit sticky, and I don't particularly like it, but I sort of need it for a green and white wedding. And you're thinking, gosh, it's a bit late to be sowing for that, but the wedding is at the end of September, so I'm hoping if I plant these in the polytunnel, then I might have some of them for this late September wedding. And it's Nicotiana, it's the lime green. I said I'd never grow it again, but here I am growing it. Although these seeds were given to me, so they might not germinate. I don't know how old they are. I think there's some that somebody got free on a magazine, but we'll chuck them in. If they don't grow, we'll chuck something else in there. There's always something else to plant, isn't there? We've always these people who've got more plants than space, and I'm definitely one of those. So I'm just going to break up the really clay heavy lumps. If they're not so hard, I can use my hands to do it, but when they're rock solid like that, baked in, they're not as crumbly. And do you know what, if they're really hard, I'm just going to chuck them to the edge, because I'm not going to be growing right at the very edge there anyway. unfortunately I hurt my hand yesterday weeding bindweed. Not the one with wrist support, funny enough. I've hurt this finger on this hand. I spent the whole of my Sunday on my hands and knees crawling around digging out bindweed roots, and to be honest I felt a bit deflated at the end of the day, because in terms of this war and these battles I'm losing at the moment, and it's not for lack of trying. But I know when I moved in I did the same as what I'm doing now, and that was 9 years ago, and it did help for the following, well, 8 years. It does help to keep it under control, but every so often you do need to really give it a good go at digging it out, and that's what I'm trying to do again now. And then it's just a case of, well, what I'm going to do actually, and we'll do a cottage garden tour. So I don't know, we'll do one next week. We'll either do the cut flower patch or the cottage garden next week. And what I've decided to do in the cottage garden is get some lengths of bamboo and put them in a row along the back and let the bindweed climb up the bamboo rather than up my plants. And then I'm just going to snip them off with scissors as they come through the soil. And I know that's not going to be getting rid of the roots, but once your flower bed starts really growing, I mean, I might not be able to get in there saying this anyway, so it's very difficult to get in and dig things up because there's just no room. And even yesterday I squashed a few geraniums and I had to dig a few up, and the trouble is it's so hot now when you dig stuff up, especially if you need to bare root it to make sure there's no bindweed at the roots. Stuff gets very sorry for itself, so you end up having to chop virtually all the leaves off to try and keep the plant alive and then replant it. So, oh, there we are, leather jacket, chuck him out for the birds. I don't use any pesticides or washing up liquid, or I just don't use anything, okay? The worst I do, and this is going to upset some people, is I come out with my scissors in the morning and I go around and I chop stuff in half. Sounds cruel, but the way I see it is the animals can still eat it, the birds can still eat them, and you know what, I don't chop them all in half either, so then it's like fair game. Some of them will manage to evade me, so there'll still be some slugs here, whereas I think if you use, you know, baits and chemicals and things and you get rid of all the slugs, well, slugs are part of the ecosystem. So yes, when they eat our plants it is awful, but by chopping them in half, I'm just getting some of them. There are always still some slugs left. You know, there's no way I'm that efficient that I go round in the morning and chop every single slug in half. It's just not going to happen. I just chop enough in half. I mean, to be fair, sometimes I look at what they're doing, and if they're on my plant eating it, they're going to get chopped in half. Whereas if they're, you know, round the edges, they might look like they're eating some of the, you know, waste bits of flowers that I cut off, I leave them. Don't get me wrong, if you want to use slug pellets in your garden, go for it. We all garden in a different way. I'm just letting you know that I don't use them. Initially, when I started this cut flower patch, the slug pressure was really, really bad because I was taking grassland pasture and turning it into growing areas. So last year was quite bad on the new part down there, but you do get it under control. This year is particularly bad, I know, for slugs and snails, but I don't know that. I should touch some wood from my own experience. I know it from one of the properties where I do a bit of gardening. Oh, hers is mainly snails. I said to her the other day, I said, God, I've never seen so many snails when I was, you know, moving pots and things around, but yeah, she's got a lot of snails, but she's going to put down some pellets, and I said I won't judge you. Right, okay, so that's a bit better for seed sowing. And I'm just going to look at where my drip emitters are, I think, and do my rows like that. Ooh, loads of debris in here. Huh, haven't done a very good job. This is why you use a rake. It's a bit harder with the drip there, but we'll manage. Right, so I have one row there, one row here. And then one row here. So these drip emitters are spaced at, just using the hori knife there, to 30 centimetres. So the blade of my hori knife, I think I may have mentioned in some of the other filming, is, there you are, 6 inches this part here. So I do a lot of my planting 6 inches apart. Whereas things like the Dahlia, I take the whole length of the knife. Ami Majus, whole length of the knife. Some things I pack in tighter. The things that are usually going to be quite upright, snapdragons, larkspur, I'll pack them in a bit tighter. Generally speaking, unless things suffer, like calendula for example, really badly with like powdery mildew and fungi if it's packed too closely together. But generally speaking, if you're growing cut flowers and you want things to grow tall, you want to pack them in close together, because they fight for the light then and it gives you longer stems. But yeah, calendula needs ventilation and air. If you pack them too closely together, they don't look so good. Right, so what we got, 1, 2, 4 rows. All the seed I'm chucking in here is really old. I have no love for it. I didn't like any of it when I grew it initially, but it will fit the colour palette of this wedding I've got. Do you know what? I haven't even bought any labels with me. That's how much I don't care. I can always look back at this video. So I don't know whether doing Ami is a good idea, because I think it might even grow on too quickly. But I've got this. This is not the Gypsophilia, the stuff you sort of get from the florist. This is the more open variety. And I think this seed's about 4 years old. So I think what we'll do is we'll put the Nicotiana there, the Ami right by the door. I mean, this gets massive. That's the trailing green amaranth, and again, that's really old. These two, which are in handwritten packets, they're probably 5 years old realistically, so they're probably not going to grow. This is how we'll do it, and we'll label in a minute. We'll just do a row of each, and I'm going to seed quite heavily because the seed's so old. And we can always get the scissors. I mean, yeah, I've just used all that up because it's so old. I can always get the scissors when I thin them out and just cut. If they grow, they might not even grow. I'll leave that there till I get a label. I don't even know how much this we got left. I grew this the first year and then I didn't, it's not really, it's good for weddings I think, but I wasn't doing any weddings then. But I didn't really like it in bouquets. But this is going to have to be a bit thinner because there's not very much seed left. Okay, that's that one. And Ami, I've got obviously my Ami outside, but that'll be long gone by the time I've got this wedding. This is slightly newer seed, so we won't go crazy with this, because I might be able to use it again next year. Right, and then the Nicotiana. Oh, back in there, you. Now, this seed, if you've ever sown it before, is teeny tiny. Oh, it's not even in a packet within a packet. Oh, do you know what? I'm just gonna go crazy with this as well, because I'm really not the biggest fan of it. And we'll just get rid of it. There, right. Right, I'll just lightly cover these in. And then we'll get some labels before we water. Right, I've got the labels. That was something that was labelled before. Scented pelargonium. To keep closing the door because, oh, the puppy, Ash, what he did was, I'd been opening this tunnel up during the day, and he came and he got on top of the Phacelia, which the Phacelia would be flowering now if I hadn't have had to chop it all back to the floor because he sat on it. And you know what? He got in here yesterday and he's done exactly the same thing. He sat on my Gilia and he thought it would be a lovely bed. But isn't this a sweet little flower? I've never grown it before. Look at that. I've got some that I cut. And it's, oh, I think sorry, I've got you going all over the place here. I think if you had that in a bridal bouquet, because it's a really on-trend colour as well, if you had that with some salmons, I just think, oh, it'll be ever so beautiful with some salmons. I'm up to no good. I was just saying to you, wasn't I? I normally plant my dahlias out bank holiday weekend, but I can't. I'm pulling a sack trolley, by the way. So, oh, I nearly lost the load. I nearly put my dahlias, I always put my dahlias out bank holiday weekend, haven't started hardening them off. Why not? Why don't I harden them off? I've got a week, it's Monday. So where can I put them? My partner's been making this thing for putting the bins on and the recycling, and he left it unattended and went to work. No bins on it. So I've put it on a sack trolley and I'm bringing it to my greenhouse so that I can harden off my plants. Now where should I put it? I still need enough room to be able to turn my car around. Here it is. Well, let's put it right outside the greenhouse, shall we? Oh, I'll try not to break it. Whoa. Okay. Sack trolleys, wonderful invention. Right, so I'm thinking I'll just pop my dahlias on here, pop them back in tonight, do that for a week, and then we can plant them out. Some of them are growing on far better than others, which is why it's probably better doing them in individual. Pots, because, for example, I want to harden. Well, that's not a very good example. I want to harden this one off, but this one's only got a tiny little shoot, so it could do with staying in the greenhouse. Next year, I'll go back to doing them in individual pots again, I think. There's only one floor with my plan, isn't there? It's not enough room. Come on, fit. I'm always loath to put anything on the floor in case rabbits eat it. Well, I've had to put a few on the floor, so fingers crossed the bunnies have got plenty of other things to eat at the moment. I now need to quickly go and feed my animals before I head off to work. So we'll do some staking in here one day, because I need to do it before the plants get too big. Haven't quite worked out what I'm going to do, because I don't want anything near the plastic, so I'm probably just going to use the bars of the polytunnel and run lines to the metal stakes. But I'm not going to put any metal stakes near the plastic at the back, because I'm just worried if they fell over or the dog knocked them over. Oh, can you imagine if the skin got ripped? So anyway, I'll put some thought into that. And definitely tours on their way, because I know, I mean, the cottage garden in particular, we haven't done a proper tour for ages. But for now, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. If you want to follow my journey, then you can subscribe to my channel. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to contribute towards the making of my channel, then you can buy me a coffee, and the link for coffee buying is in the blurb to the clip. Happy gardening. Is it next weekend's bank holiday weekend? 3 days of gardening. See you then.